There we go. Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Scott Forehand. Today is the 29th of May, 2025. It is 5:32 p.m. We are doing our monthly Debt-Free Life Infinite Bank class. This one today is a little bit different than what we usually do. This one is going to be focused on how do you utilize an infinite bank for business. And when we talk about a business, I'm talking about it could be a small business, a sole proprietor, up to about 10 employees. It doesn't matter whether you're an LLC or not. It could be an S Corp. C Corps have more difficulty using these because of the size of the C Corp, but most of the people that would want to be taking advantages of the easy pieces of this would be an S Corp or an LLC trading as an S Corp. This program is appropriate for people or organizations that have up to about 50 employees. It can be utilized as a alternative retirement program. What do I mean by that? I mean, I have some physicians groups that I work with where we're actually converting or have already converted their 401ks into infinite banks. And there's a lot of it. There's a lot of benefit to that. So let me talk about that first. So the benefits of using one of these programs, an infinite bank, as opposed to a 401k. So the 401k has limitations about when you can gain access to it. It has restrictions on why you gain early access to it. There are penalties if you try to gain early access to it. And most of the time, unless it's structured as a Roth, there's going to be a tax component to it. So when we're putting money into an infinite bank, we are by default eliminating the taxable issue. So that's one of the key benefits about an infinite bank, whether you're using it for retirement or whatever. So if I'm putting $10,000 into a 401k, or I'm putting $10,000 into an infinite bank, for me looking to retire, I can't touch the money in that 401k until either I'm 55 if my custodian allows, 59 and a half if it's a Roth, or whatever the IRS says is the appropriate retirement age for you at that time, which retirement age is changing, by the way, if you haven't been paying attention to the news. So if that's the thing that we're looking for, because I'm talking with a lot of clients these days who don't want to wait until they're 60 to retire. Some younger folks that are looking to retire, and I've even had somebody told me the other day they want to retire at 40. Okay. You can do that, but you're probably not going to be able to do that with a traditional retirement program, which is one of the main advantages of these programs, infinite banks as retirement vehicles, because we can touch the money anytime we want for whatever reason we want, and we don't have to give anybody a reason why we're touching the money except for ourselves because we are the banker. All right. So that's a little brief brief statement about how we would use this as a tool for retirement for a business. One of the other things that we could do in a business situation is some companies offer a process called list billing. And a list bill means that the company is actually paying the money. Now, this is really cool when you take into consideration a tool called IRS Tax Code 162. And Tax Code 162 says a life insurance policy used as an executive perk or an executive bonus can be a write-off for the business. So if you are the business and you are using this tool, and the business, let's say, deposits $20,000 into a life insurance policy over the course of a year, then the business gets to take a $20,000 write-off. You receive the $20,000 as part of your normal normal income. It comes into the life insurance policy that you're the beneficiary of, that you own, that you control, but it's paid by your company. This is the same kind of process that would happen if you had a 401k. The company deposits the money into your 401k. If you want to match, you match. and whatever you say that you want to put in, that you want to have your company match, then your company takes that money out of your check, just like they would normally for a 401k process, and they deposit that money into your infinite bank. The company gets to take under 162 a possible write-off. Let me show you that for a second. I've done some of this before. About 2022 is the last time I think I went over this specific aspect of an infinite bank strategy. But here's this. So if we're using tax code 162, which is the executive perk or the executive bonus, that's what that tax code references. There's a statement, and you can see it's probably hard to read, but it says potential for tax deductions. If the K1 reflects losses or deductions, it may result in a tax deduction for the recipient, reducing their overall tax liability. So if I'm the company, if I'm the owner of my company, and let's say I own a carpet cleaning business, in my carpet cleaning business, I make $175,000 a year. I'm going to owe income on that 175 when I have to write that off and pass that through to me if it's an S corp. If I don't, let's say for that to make that business income of 175,000, let's say I have $100,000 of expenses. Okay? If I've got a large enough life insurance policy, it's possible that I could spend what's $80,000. $80,000 a year divided by 12. So that's $6,700 a month. There are large life insurance policies out there that's not abnormal. So if I'm paying $6,700 a month as a business and I have $100,000 of expenses, my total at this point business profit is $75,000. But if my key executive, who happens to be me, is the one who I want to maintain employment with the company because it's my company, and I want to pay for a life insurance policy that's $6,700 a month for me, then that business is going to create another write-off of $80,000. So now my business did not make any money. My business actually lost $5,000. So that business would pass that $5,000 loss to me on a K1. And I would receive the money, that $80,000 that my business spent on that life insurance policy for me. And if, like most of these programs are, if there's a cash value component to this life insurance policy, it's probable that the majority of that $80,000 is actually going to be cash value. And I can gain access to that money about 24 hours after it's credited to that life insurance policy. So this is not about washing money. This is not a money laundering process. This is not illegal. What we're doing is we're using the tax code to our benefit. Tax code 162 says, if I have a key executive that I want to maintain employment with, I can offer them a life insurance policy as an enticement to maintain employment. I, as the business owner, get to write off the cost of that life insurance business. And then if I have more write-offs than I have profit, then it's going to pass through to me on my K1 and I'm going to take the write-off. In the company that I just worked for, that just did this, it's a small medical office with I think 7 or 8 employees, 1 manager, and 2 physicians. In that group, the total amount of money that's going into their infinite bank retirement plan for each staff member, it's about $30,000 a month. That means at the end of the year, there's going to be about, what is it, 30 times 12, $360,000 of write-offs that's going to be able to pass through to that physician, which means that physician is actually not going to have a taxable income. So this is just one of the strategies that can be employed. That's the tax code 162 exemption. This is an old piece of this presentation because this goes back to 2022 when I had tax brackets of 2022 quoted. But even back then, this was still super strong. We're looking about when we're using an infinite bank, we can actually reduce not only our taxes, but also the tax bracket. So in this case, for this particular person at 175,000, we were able to drop their tax bracket, one whole bracket, which changed it from 32% down to 24%, which was a massive amount of money that they saved for this particular example. So that's the tax code 162. That's how it could be used as an enticement to maintain employment for a key executive. A key executive is whoever the business owner says is the key executive. The person who sits at the front desk could be a key executive if that business owner determines that they're a key executive. As we move forward with this presentation today, I'm going to stop and give people an opportunity to ask questions. Just to give you a further example, though, if you went into a larger component where we're at $225,000 of tax exposure, again, in this particular case, where they would have been, which is in the 35% tax bracket, we were actually able to drop it 2 tax brackets, which saves a massive amount of money. And so tax mitigation is one of the reasons why we would use these programs. And this is just one example of tax mitigation. All right, I will stop. Hello, everybody. Are you thoroughly bored yet?
Good stuff.
Hey, Greg, do you have a question, sir?
No, I just said it's good stuff.
All right. Andy, you raised your hand. You're thoroughly bored or you have a question?
Question.
All right, hit me.
Cash, does that includes PUA?
So PUA in the parlance of what we're talking about, these are cash value life insurance policies. Cash value in a life insurance policy is hidden in 2 places. PUA is cash value.
Okay.
For our use. For the carrier, PUA is paid up additional life insurance. And for the way the IRS looks at it, that's paid up additional life insurance. It's not cash. It's life insurance. You bought life insurance, which is really what you did. Because if I send that company $80,000 a year, I didn't buy $2,500 a month of life insurance and then $6,000 a month of cash value. That's not what I bought. I bought $8,000 a month, $80,000 a year of life insurance. And the carrier considers some of that as an increase in cash value that we can borrow against, which is how and why we maintain tax exempt status from these programs. Because we're not ever touching our money. We're not touching the principal. The principal's in there forever. It's earning a guaranteed interest rate and a return in the form of a dividend every year for the rest of our lives for as long as that policy is active. Even if we're not funding it anymore, it's still earning. Okay? But it's not cash that you can go write a check. You have to move the money, take a loan, move the money to your brick and mortar bank, whoever that is, and then you can utilize the money. So this is a place for people if I have a lot of real estate investor clients and they're on the sidelines right now waiting for the market to come back to what they think is normal, which it probably isn't going to go back, but whatever. So in that particular case, their money's sitting on the sidelines. Would you rather it sit on the sidelines in a bank that could possibly fail? Everybody here has heard of a bank that failed. There were 4 big ones last year that failed. There's about 20 banks a year every year that fails. Some years there's as many as 80 that have failed. Everybody can name a bank that's failed. Can anybody name an insurance company that failed? Yeah. There's no insurance company that's ever failed. It's
Not the
always
big
been
ones.
it's always been bought out by another insurance company and their policies are serviced and they have to. That has to happen. For an insurance company to do business in any given state, they have to agree to pay money into a program that co-insures all the other insurance companies. So they're not allowed to fail. All right. So that was the first thing I wanted to touch on is a 162 tax code exemption. Also, the benefit where that 162 comes into play, it's not just that it's for one person if you're a single business owner or a sole proprietorship. If you've got 10 employees and you start using those employees, giving them this opportunity to be a retirement program versus a 401k or a 403b if you're in the education or medical space, or 457 or any of those other options. So this is an alternative. It is a tax exempt alternative, just like a Roth is tax exempt, but this doesn't have the restrictions of a Roth. The Roth you can't touch till you're 59 and a half. The money that's in there has to be in there for at least 5 years, and a Roth can lose money.
Another question.
Yep.
The guy you have to convince is the business's account. Do you have, aside from the reference to the 162, do you have something that outlines this?
Every single case is different. So there isn't any stock thing that's out there. But in the end, I love working with accountants because math doesn't lie. And these mathematically, these work, these prove mathematically. So that's a non-issue. It hasn't been an issue for me.
And for me,
Okay.
Hey, Scott, how does that, for your example of 80,000, how does that cash infusion into the policy not trigger a MEC?
It's structured not to be a MEC. It's structured so that it can accept $75,000 a year in cash, and $5,000 a year is going into premium. It's
All right.
non-MEC solution.
All right. Super.
All right. Anybody else? Oh, and for those of you, if you're not insurance folks, what a MEC is, it stands for a modified endowment contract. And a modified endowment contract is what happens to a life insurance policy if you try to have too much cash too fast. And it makes the whole thing taxable. Not a good place to be. All right. All right. Let's see. What's next on the agenda? Hold on one second. Okay. What happens if you do a thing called a derivative annuity? All right. Let's go there. So a derivative annuity. So let's say you have a program. Hold on one second. Let me get it up. Such as this one. Okay. So this is a solution. This is like where you were just talking, Rick. How about the $80,000 guy? Well, this is not an $80,000 person. This is a $20,000 person. Somebody's making marks. Thank you for whoever's doing that. So where we go is this. If we look at the modal premium in this particular example, that's $20,000. So this is a company that's decided that they want, for this particular executive, they're going to spend $20,000 a year. So if you've got a smaller company or you're a sole proprietor, this makes perfect sense, because what it's doing is it's going to be putting, in this particular example, of that $20,000, $18,000 a year into PUA, which is, as Andy was asking earlier, that's going to be considered cash value by the company, by the carrier. And if I'm going to be putting in, which in this case, 18,000 of my 20,000, this is a pretty efficient program. This is that 90%? Might be 90%. That's pretty strong. That means 90% of every dollar you put into this program is going to be cash growth. Now, here's the cool thing. Really what this means for this particular program is every dollar you put in over $2,000 is cash growth. And there's room, there's a ceiling. You could actually put it in another 11,000 if you wanted. All I did here was, in this example I'm going to show you, all I did was assume that $20,000 or is all we're doing every year. And then I looked at a specific point in the future. Hold on one second. Let me get to that place where we're having some accrual. And here's where we're looking. So in this particular case, this is a nope, one more. There we go. This is a 20-year plan. So this is based on a 40-year-old female client who owns a small business. Her small business, she owns a cleaning service. And the cleaning service generates about $110,000 a year, but she wants to use this as a tool to invest in retirement. So if all she did was put that $20,000 a year into this for 20 years, this is where her retirement would be. That's not bad. That's $613,000. And even after she's no longer paying any premiums, this is growing at the rate of, what is that, $28,000 a year. So that created a permanent tax-exempt income of $28,000 a year, or the equivalent of a taxable income of about $38,000 a year. That's not bad. Considering at that rate, you're never actually touching the underlying value, the underlying program of $613,000. One of the other things I want to pay particular attention to this is this, from a legacy perspective, also created a $1.2 million life insurance policy that's growing at $25,000 a year, whether she funds it or not. And that's permanent. It grows every year. And here's the biggest thing to really take for just a second and look. If you look at that year 21 cost basis, it's the same as my year 20 cost basis. I'm not paying a dime ever again. I've got permanent cash growth. I've got permanent death benefit growth, but I only ever paid in $383,000. So if you think about this as what does it mean as a legacy piece, this is a 4x. This is a 4x return minimum. And if you're thinking about what does it mean for a cash return, it's a 2x return. Even if I take all $613,000 out in year 21 and go buy another investment vehicle, I've still got $500,000 of death benefit as my legacy. This is step one of using this as a business retirement tool. I'm diverting $20,000 a year instead of going into a 401k where I may lose money, I may win money, I'm definitely going to be taxed. Instead of moving money into that vehicle as an alternative, I'm moving it into an infinite bank, or in this case, this particular type of cash value life insurance policy. And I'm going to do this consistently, like I would for my 401k, consistently. I'm going to do this for 20 years. Then I'm going to retire. What happens if the money takes a step off at some point along the way? And so what I'm talking about here is what's called a derivative annuity. Let me go ahead and get anybody any opportunity to ask any questions about this right now before we go forward. Does that help you? I see some people squinting.
Where's she taking the 28K as an annual?
It's here. What we're looking at is the value here, 613 versus 641. The difference is $28,000. So that means paying zero, we made $28,000. And since this is by nature a tax-exempt program, that's $28,000 of tax-exempt income.
But it's going into the insurance. It's not coming out into her bank account.
This is the cash value. So all it means is at this point, at some point that year, she's going to fill out a loan request form, send it in for $28,000. They're going to deposit $28,000 into her checking account.
Gotcha.
Or whatever brick and mortar account she's using. It could also be a savings account. But here's what I'm going to say. These tools allow you to leverage them. If nobody else has any other questions, I'm going to move on into the derivative annuity side of this. Okay. And most of you are going to have a holy cow moment here in just a second. So a derivative annuity, what is it? All it is, an annuity, the definition of an annuity is an income stream Derivative means it was derived from somewhere else. Okay, so all I'm doing here is what happens if I leverage the money from this program that you see on your screen? What happens if I leverage the money from this into a derivative annuity? What does that look like? All right, hold on 1 second. Isn't this fun? You guys bored yet? Should be getting, all right. So this is brand new. I just completed this earlier this afternoon. So in this particular case, when we talk about a process called annuity stacking, which is a way to mitigate timing risk, let me explain that real quick. In 2022, if you took $100,000 and invested it into an annuity in January of 2022, the market dropped 30%, and then it came back. So at the end of the year, it was only 19% down, right? Only 19% down. You know, people were having heart attacks. Only 19% down. So in this option of $100,000 going into annuity in January, what would have happened the following January when they did all their calculations and figured out how much money you had added to your annuity? The answer would have been zero because the market was still down 19% from where it was previously. Now, if you had waited and staggered that $100,000 where 50,000 went in January and 50,000 went in February, the majority of the loss had happened starting in February, and you would have been able to capture some of that rise. So the February rise would have been about 15%. So if you separate out $100,000 into a January piece and a February piece using 2022 as an example, the January piece would have had the same result, zero gain, but the February piece had a 15% gain. So by staggering when you start an annuity or with a block of money, by separating it out, this is called mitigation of timing risk or sequence of risk of returns. Then I put myself in a place where that second tranche of money, that second $50,000 earned 15%. And now my net for the whole 100,000 would have been a gain of 7.5%. And now if you talk to everybody else who was in the market or on the unfortunate people that were in 401ks that had to start taking money at that time because they're retired, that the sky was falling. In this example, that annuity, separating it out, you would have had a 7.5% gain. Everybody else is experiencing a 19% loss. It's a huge swing. That's the benefit of an annuity, folks, because we're sequestering the money in a place where we can't ever lose again, as long as it's the right kind of annuity. And I'm not talking about variable annuities. All right. So in this example, this is a series of derivative annuities, annuities that have been derived from my infinite bank, which is based on my business. My business infinite bank is able to fund my infinite bank at the rate of $20,000 a year, of which 18,000 is going into cash value. And then I'm able to take a loan at specific points in time in the future from my infinite bank to leverage the money. What does that look like? In this case, we created a derivative annuity stack of 6 annuities. Each annuity is $25,000 to start. Because of the nature of the annuity that I'm using, which is one of the common ones that's out there, this has a bonus on the minute you roll it over. It has an average gain of 7.35%. So this, which you see at the top, this is assuming only a 7% gain. So the actual performance will be better than what I'm showing. So over time, when you put that first annuity in, which according to our plan, hold on 1 second, I'll show you our plan. Where is our plan? Our plan seems to be hiding at this moment. Hold, please. Nope. Nope. Don't need that one anymore. So let's go load up the one pager. Where's that one? There it is. Okay. Now we're back. And we're back. What's the plan look like? Here's the plan. So in this particular example, what I've done is I've put in the amount of money I'm putting in every year, just $20,000. And I've looked at regular dates along the way where I'm going to be able to pull a $25,000 loan from the system. And this is the first time I can do it comfortably, which is going to be before the end of the second year. In month 22, I'm going to pull a $25,000 loan. And then again, in year 3.34, which is the 3 1/3 years and 40 months, I'm going to pull another $25,000 loan. And then in year 5.08, so 1 month into the fifth year, I'm going to pull another $25,000 loan. And then in year 6.92, another 25,000, 8.08, another 25,000, 10.08, another 25,000. That is the complete creation of a derivative annuity stack. That's where the money's coming from, and that's the actual times that it's going to take to be able to pull that money out. Now, if we translate that over to our spreadsheet, that's where these numbers come from. Year 1.83, 3.34, 4.83, 6.92, and so on. That's where the money gets derived from. It's derived from my infinite bank. And this is how it grows, assuming a 7% growth. If you go back behind me and check my math, you'll notice that this number does not include a 7% growth. I intentionally did that. I made it a little bit less. I gave it only a 5% growth. In the end, because of this number, the 7% per year gain is 7.35. This number is going to be a hell of a lot bigger because we're talking about compounding the compound for years. Okay. And that little 5% versus 7.35%, and then year one is huge. It ends up being a big number. All that being said, let me explain that. Here we go. This is what I used. Hold on, I'll get you just a second, Andy. This is what it looks like with a 7.35% gain. This is 7. So it's about $16,000, $17,000 difference with that 0.35% difference. Not bad. This is your running total of the value of the derivative annuity stack. The derivative annuity stack is not complete until year 10. That's what the value of the stack is in year 10. Anybody following the math about how much it's cost to create that stack at this point? 6 times 25, that's 150K. So by year 10, over 10 years, I've derived some money, $150,000 from my infinite bank, my business class infinite bank, and I've turned 150,000 into 223. That's not bad. And then it goes up. Again, here we are. My total income, my total investment was only 150, and now I'm at 410 here. Everybody with me so far? Where am I at my infinite bank? I'm still, where's that number? Man, everything's moving around on me. Sorry, guys. I'm still in the 600s. So the point is that I've turned what is $323,000 over 20, is it 20 years? Where's that? What'd you do with that piece, Andy? Why are you hiding it from me?
It's 20.
Yeah, here it is. I found it. This was my total investment over time that I got from income that I didn't take from my business. I had my business pay it into my infinite bank. I got a write-off for it in that year. The $20,000 didn't disappear. It's still in my account. My total over time is 383. My 20-year number is 613. plus 424. So I've turned $383,000 over 20 years into a write-off of $383,000 of income plus 1.0 whatever 1.05 million dollars of liquid capital plus a death benefit of over $500,000. I did this using programs that can't lose a penny ever. So this is just an example about how you can leverage the safety and security of an infinite bank from a business strategy. This doesn't mean that they can't have a 401k. They can still do that on top of this. They're probably foolish to do that, but they can. All right, I see Dulce is diligently studying the math on the screen. Yeah, I saw you. Saw you peering through. All right,
Hey,
who's
Captain,
got?
Captain,
Yeah,
Captain Forehand, I got a question.
yes, Dr. Quasani.
All right, so because these are loans that you're
Yep.
taking out from your policies,
Yep.
from my understanding, when you take out a loan, there has to be a repayment or there's some interest charged.
Sure.
So will there be
If you
repayments
notice,
after these loans?
yeah. So when I was looking at those numbers, here, let me show you. When I said a net 500,000, I'm subtracting this amount from that because I'm assuming that you've encumbered your entire program. You won't, and you didn't, but I'm assuming you did. So the loan will get paid back out of the death benefit. The total loan, remember, the total loan that you took was 6 times 20, 120K. So you owe $120,000 back to your infinite bank. We've got a minimum of $500,000 of coverage for that upon death. So no matter what, the loan gets paid back. In the schedule that I did though, because remember, let me show you that. Good question, Mansour. In the schedule, I actually considered that, and the schedule actually pays the loan back on schedule. You didn't see it, and it doesn't show it to you here, but this software forces you to pay the loan back as you go. So in this case, there is no loan buildup. At the end of this run, with the numbers that I showed, the loan's paid off. There is no loan. That should be a holy cow moment for you. So like for this case, in year 1.83, because I broke this down into $5,000 increments, that's not what we're doing, but that's what the system is seeing. So we're taking a $5,000 loan and paying it off, taking a $5,000 loan and paying it off, taking, and so on and so on and so on. So by the time we're here in year 1.83, we've taken and paid off five $5,000 loans, which have all been paid off. So there is no loan. The loan's paid off based on our annual contribution. And that's also why this is staggered. So if you're putting in $20,000 a year and you're doing it on the first of the year each year, that means on January 1st, you've got $40,000 in the system. But we're waiting until year 1.83. Okay? So that's just a quirk of the system, but the loans in this plan are paid off. Good question.
When you're staggering your annuities, are
Yep.
they separate annuities or are you adding to?
Oh no, they're definitely separate. We don't want to, there's no reason to add. There actually could be a reason to add to an annuity, which the reason why you might want to add to it is if it's a specialized type of annuity that offers things like long-term care or whatever, something like that in there. So in that case, maybe we want to contribute to that annuity some more because we want some more long-term care benefit. But again, it's just a tool. It just depends on how we use it. And in general, when I'm doing stacks, I'm going to distribute them as evenly throughout the calendar year as possible so that we don't have, anybody who says they can time the market is a liar, and anybody who successfully timed the market is very lucky. Okay? So that's not what we do here. We don't base financial planning on luck. That's a really bad tool for planning. I want knowns. I want worst case scenarios. That way we're always going to do better than the worst case. All right. This has been fun. Look at that, 45 minutes. Anybody else have any questions about anything? Because it's opening day for the local area baseball team where I live now, and we're going to go see opening night at 7:05 p.m. Pretty
Scott, I have one quick question.
Hey, Greg.
So how do you respond to somebody who sees the output of this, and that the first, 3 years, it's real minimal on their investment return, if anything, when they're not, adding money to it? How do you address that when that throws a red flag in their head?
Yeah, I go back to 2000, 2008, 2013, 1992, 1981, 1973. And I say, well, if you put money in then in the stock market, you'd still be down another 40%.
I love it. Yeah, and with this is consistent. You know what you're getting.
Right. Yeah, this is not a sexy growth piece. That's not what this is about. That's not the purpose of this. This is about retirement.
Yeah.
And utilizing and taking advantage of some business applications for retirement. And if I'm looking at this and I'm being honest, I don't want guesses. I don't want to say, yeah, well, we can get you 12% in the market, because they can't. Because the average market return in the S&P for the last 20 years is 5.9%. That's taxable, which means the actual realized return is 4.1%. And that's if you didn't get in at the wrong time. And this, we don't care. We're not getting in the wrong time or the right time. We completely take timing out of the equation, which is a big, huge piece that most people are missing. We want to mitigate the risk of calling it wrong. So we don't. We just spread it across the course of a year. You're going to have some of those pieces. If you're talking about an annuity stack, you're going to have some of those pieces that are going to perform greater than the others. And the beautiful thing about this is there's nothing that says you have to take money from an annuity. There's damn sure stuff out there that says you have to take money from your IRA. So if I don't want to take money out of my 40 whatever, I don't have a choice if I'm 73 years old. If I don't want to take money from my infinite bank, I don't have to. If I don't want to take money from my IRA, I have to. If I'm using an annuity stack, I do have some, I'm going to have that RMD piece depending on what kind of annuity stack I'm using. And part of what we do, one thing I want everybody to realize here, the money that we're using to create the annuity stack, it's not from this. Okay. You can't start an annuity with borrowed money. Okay. But what I can do is I can use the money from my infinite bank, which is a loan, and I can use that to replace my wages. And I can use my wages, my earned money, to purchase that annuity. And instead of me paying my power bill, my mortgage, my gas bill, putting gas in the tank and putting food on the table, instead of me using my earned money for that, I can repurpose my earned money to go buy that annuity. And I can use the money that I just borrowed from my infinite bank to pay for those daily living expenses. So that people need to understand that there's a speed limit that you can do these programs. And if you make $30,000 a year, you can't put $50,000 into an annuity unless you've got some other source of income or some money. If you're borrowing money from your infinite bank to create that annuity stack, you have to be able to use that money to replace your wages, and your wages have to buy that annuity. So it's just, I mean, I've never heard anybody called out for it. But I do things legally, and that's the way we have to do these things. We have to look at income to make sure that it's an appropriate vehicle for you. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you only make $20,000, in which case you can't do one every year. You do one every other year. There's ways around it. We have to, but it has to be plausible. It has to be real. Hello, Rose. Hello, Max. All right. Anybody else have any questions before we get rocking and rolling here? Well, thank you. I think this is the second one of these we've done from where we're at our new house. So this has been a lot of fun. Hopefully you got something out of this. This will be sent to our video producer here in a day or so. So if you want to rewatch this, it'll be up on the YouTube channel in a couple of days. It'll also be out there in pieces on TikTok and other social media avenues. And if you want to be notified when it comes out, when you go to the YouTube channel, just subscribe and it'll notify you as soon as it's posted. Thank you everybody for coming. Happy Thursday, or as I like to call it, Little Friday.